This podcast is sponsored by the Tollington Arms on Hornsey Road, a bubbly pub with a Thai kitchen home to thousands of Arsenal fans every season. Open daily from noon.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Gooner and Ramble podcast. I'm your host Giles, and joining me today are Akil. How you doing, mate? You alright?
Yeah, very good, very good.
And we are happy to welcome Charles Watts of Football London to the podcast. How you doing, Charles? Thanks for coming on.
No worries, yeah, I'm very good. How are you? You alright?
Not too bad, not too bad. I know it's been a busy time for you, what with following the Arsenal around, and obviously Wenger's leaving tour. I suppose it's grand tour of duty in the last few weeks. As a journalist, we can start by asking you, what's it been like following the Arsenal Football Club and Wenger around since the announcement been made? I mean, have you noticed anything different in terms of?
Definitely, it's been a massive difference. He's visibly, the pressure is lifted off him. It really has. He started to enjoy himself. I think to be fair to him and to be fair to all the clubs pretty much that Arsenal have come up against since he announced it, they've been great to him. Everyone's been great to him. He's starting at what happened at United and ending at what happened at Huddersfield. And I think he was genuinely really touched by the sort of outpouring of support he'd got from not just from Arsenal fans, but from English football fans up and down the country and from rival clubs. And he has just he's looked 5 years younger almost. Like the weight of expectation, the weight of pressure from the Arsenal fans, it's just lifted off him. And it's been really nice to follow, to be honest, because, I'm an Arsenal fan. I've been a season ticket holder the whole time that Arsene Wenger's been in charge of the club, and just to be there at the end and witness it all, and it's been really sort of touching and nice, and I'm delighted that he's got the send off that he deserved. I wasn't sure about the timing when they announced it initially, but I'm really happy that it's worked out the way it has, and I'm happy for him as well that he's gone out and got the support and got the sort of respect that he's deserved, not just from Arsenal fans but from all around England.
Indeed. Ax, I mean, since the announcement was made, whether it was an agreed decision, a mutual decision, or whether he was pushed, or whatever the what's and wherefores, I mean, he's really kind of taken it, in public at least, in really good grace. I think he's been an example, a model of dignified elder statesman in these last few weeks,
Yeah. I mean, I look at this whole last sort of 10 days period, his last 10 days, and you think of the way he defended Mesut Ozil after the Atletico Madrid game, bearing in mind Martin Keown was actually one of the few pundits who genuinely has still supported Wenger, who's spoken highly of him, who still gets on with him. But Arsene Wenger, even though he knew he was leaving, just did not slag off Mesut Ozil that night and defended him to the core. And I think that kind of sums him up. I think his players sort of, they loved him. Whether they stopped playing for him and stuff is debatable, or whether they took their foot off the gas, I don't know. But, that's why the players really loved him. And I think he was at a massive low after that Atletico Madrid game, because he came to the realization that it's over here. It's completely over. But then I think that the reaction he got, at that Burnley game, as Charles says, it just relaxed him totally. And I think he found the Burnley stuff a bit uncomfortable, if I'm honest, at times. I think his speech was very, I've heard him speak at 10 or 11 AGMs in a row. I've heard him speak at foundation balls, at events, and that was honestly the most uncomfortable I've ever heard him feel. He stuttered, he messed up a few words.
The mic went off.
The mic went off. Honestly, it wasn't his fault, unless his finger just tapped the off button. But generally, I think he was nervous, really nervous. But I think after that he settled down, and Leicester, even though we lost, he seemed to still enjoy it. He gave the Leicester fans a wave, when they were 2 or 3-1 down, and the whole crowd stood up and sang, and then obviously at Huddersfield as well. And I spoke to sort of Mark Ganella and Stuart McFarlane at the Arsenal Foundation ball, and what stood out for me was both of them kind of said, just forget the football side for a second, because obviously that's what brings debates, but as a man, he's been a credit to so many people at that football club, and he's very, very well respected by people at that football club. So, yeah, I think it was a nice way of going. I think as Charles said, Leicester and Huddersfield did their bit, and yeah, we sort of move on. But I'm glad he got that kind of, he got tributes from everywhere, and I'm glad he got that chance to say goodbye properly.
I just after the Atletico game, I was in the press conference in Madrid,
yeah,
and he was close to tears when he walked in. He looked absolutely devastated. I think the realization, the fact that it was over, but I also think he knew that Arsenal should have gone through over those two legs, and he knew what had happened in North London had really cost him, and he was absolutely crestfallen. It was and I actually asked him a question about Keown's comments, and the look he gave me as I was answering, I could see how annoyed he was that Keown had come out with that, and he was, like you said, he was so defiant in his response about Ozil, and like I said, I thought it was typical Wenger, even at the end, how he was staunchly supporting his players, and I'm not sure Ozil deserved that much support that night, because I thought it was really poor anyway, but although I did think Keown went slightly over the top in what he had to say.
What that reminded. Sorry, so I thought you was finished. Sorry.
No, go for it.
No, you go.
I was just going to say the difference from walking out of that press conference at Madrid to then what happened against Burnley. And I was really worried going there to the Burnley game. I wasn't quite sure what to expect given what had happened in Spain, given what the Emirates has been like in the build up to it anyway. And as well, I wasn't sure, if it was going to be full. I wasn't sure what the events afterwards were going to be like. Was anyone going to stay or anything? And I was really genuinely worried that he was going to end up talking to a half-empty stadium, and it was going to be really, really disappointing. And so I was so happy that it all worked out so well that day against Burnley, and he got exactly what he deserved. And it was just nice seeing him like that, and having what I'd witnessed just a few days earlier in Spain, because it was upsetting to see him looking that emotional and that devastated, and you just could sense in Spain he knew it was over, and that was the grand finale had failed to materialise. And I think what's going on in France at the moment, it's just finished. I imagine that Arsenal would have beaten Marseille in that final, and he was so disappointed that it failed to happen. And it was one of those. He didn't often break sort of emotionally, Wenger, but in Spain you could tell that really, really hurt him.
Yeah,
indeed.
I was just going to say, it was like, I don't know. It was. I always remember that Sven-Göran Eriksson moment, that when he kind of did he resign or was he sacked? I can't remember. But when he left England, and that was after Wayne Rooney, I think, had got sent off, wasn't it, in the World Cup or the Euros or whatever it was. Yeah. And he kind of said, "Don't kill Wayne Rooney because you need him." And it was something, I don't know. I felt it was something similar with Mesut Ozil. It was a little bit like don't kill him. He's just signed a new long-term deal. He's here. You sort of need him next year. And it just, I don't know, there was something about it that it sounded a little bit like that. But, it's just something I remember.
And to sort of extend the point, Akio, I mean, he did say the same about the team, didn't he? He said, this is a special group. And he still believes there are only two or three. I mean, every year we're 2 or 3 players short.
He's repeated that in pretty much every press conference he's said since Madrid, though. He's made a real point of saying it. And whether that's almost passing the buck a little bit and saying that they're not, I haven't left you with that bad a squad. But I think he's got a point. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think Arsenal are that far off. I know they've finished 37 points or whatever is ridiculous behind Man City, but I think the away form has been such an anomaly this season. Like it's been so bad compared to when you look at them at home. They're up there with Manchester City, and to have such opposites, it just almost feels like a one-off. There's no way they're going to be that bad away next season. No chance. The
thing is that, Charles, if I can interrupt, for the whole of 2017, I mean, there were signs that their away form was pretty poor. So, I mean, could it be argued that our away form, this season is sort of like an extension, like a hangover from the way we ended last season?
Possibly. I mean, you got to come back to the defence, haven't you, and just look at the way you get tested an awful lot more defensively when you're away from home, and Arsenal aren't good enough defensively. But even going forward, they haven't scored the goals that have been enough to get them points, and they've led in 4 of the games, I think, that they've lost away. Think of Watford, think of Swansea, Bournemouth. You've been leading those games, but you don't throw those games away. You certainly don't end up empty-handed, and I just can't see them being as bad next season if they can replicate the form at home. I'm not saying they're going to win the league next season, but I don't think they're anywhere near as bad as the league position suggests this season. When you look at the attacking talent that they've got and the goals in their side, and I think Mkhitaryan's going to prove to be an absolutely wonderful signing next season as well. I think he's some player. And,
I think so as well. And I think Mkhitaryan is so determined. I mean, I had a word with him at the foundation ball, and he was fairly open on the differences between Man United and Arsenal, and the fact that he's allowed freedom at Arsenal. Of course, that depends on who comes in, but generally he believes that everyone at Arsenal has that DNA and wants to play that football. And he since his injury, I thought he's looked really good.
I think that's great. I think Mesut's going to. It's going to be interesting who does come in, if it's Arteta or if it's whoever. Do you play Mkhitaryan and Ozil in the same team? Because the way they ended the season, for me, I just think if it's a choice of one of the two, I'd be playing Mkhitaryan. I've got to say, I think he provides almost as much of a creative spark, but he'll provide more of a goal threat as well. I think he'll score you more goals. And I think it'll be really interesting. I think Ozil's going to have to step up his game anyway. I think, especially now Wenger's gone, if he's going to want to keep his place in the side, I think he's really going to have to step up his game and sort of step up to the challenge that Mkhitaryan is going to bring.
It should be. I mean, that last game. I know it was only Huddersfield and whatnot, but Mkhitaryan, Lacazette, and Aubameyang, they seem to be forging sort of a partnership and understanding between them. Which does bode well for the future. What I wanted to ask you guys is, Wenger spoke about the values, and a lot of people have speculated on what these values are, whether they're still relevant, what we can take forward. And I want to ask you, start with you, Charles. What do you think those values are that Wenger was talking about? And are they still relevant going forward?
I think they're relevant because I think Arsenal sort of have always prided themselves on a club that has values, haven't they? And I think it's from playing football the right way to acting the right way off the pitch to doing the right thing in the boardroom to treating clubs the right way to treating rival clubs the right way. I mean, to handling yourself in negotiations, all those sort of things that Arsenal very much pride themselves on. And I think Wenger's done his very best the whole time that he's been there to maintain that, even say after David Dein had gone, who was so important to him and so important to Arsenal and was so well respected in the football game. I think Wenger's been very keen to carry on those sort of traditions, and that, and I think also just the way football's played, the way that Wenger has totally transformed how Arsenal are seen around Europe, and I think he's determined to make that continue, which is why I think Ivan Gazidis is as well, and which is why I think when you're looking at the possible appointment, who could be coming in and who's been moved to, Per Mertesacker has gone over to the academy now to keep, and you sort of look at how they're positioning themselves, and I think Arsenal very, very keen to keep that those values and those traditions that have been built certainly during Wenger's time, but even before that, to keep them going.
Alex, I want to ask you a question. As a new man comes in, new objectives set, do you think those objectives influence the value system at the club? Do you think they change in any way, or do you think they're separate?
It's a good question, actually. I think there's some that are separate, some that potentially are a part of the objective. So what Charles talks about the values of the club and how we treat other clubs and all that, I think, it's well known that Arsene Wenger goes up to the director's box pretty much every game and shakes everyone's hand who's in there. Something like that wouldn't be in your objectives, but potentially the new manager might be expected to do something like that just because it's the right thing to do. We decorate the director's box with those flowers on the table as the colours of the opposition. Now the manager would have nothing to do with that. That you think would continue. But where I think there will be potentially something in there is, bringing young players through, giving them a chance. Again, I know I keep talking about the foundation ball, but Arsene Wenger spoke there as well, and I think it's online now. But he spoke about the values there as well, about keeping them going. and things like that. And then it was later on in the evening where he was having a discussion with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and you looked at that and you thought, that's a value, isn't it? That's bringing a young player in, giving him a chance, and the player's done well. So it's that could be part of an objective, yes, that you continue to bring young players through. I think something like playing good football or playing expansive football, I'm not sure how you kind of measure that. But so I think it's a little bit of both, actually, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because he talks about value so much, and then probably his first day of, I know he's contracted to Arsenal probably for another month, but really Monday was his first day of not being Arsenal manager, and we got the news that Colin Lewin, after 20 plus years, has gone. And that wasn't announced earlier. We said bye to Vic Akers, we said bye to Alex Scott. We knew Borough Priamac, Neil Bansfield were going, but we never got a chance to say bye to Colin Lewin. I know that might sound a bit funny because he's behind the scenes and stuff, but for someone who's worked at the club so long, it would have been nice to have a mention on that Burnley game. Just even an applause. But that hasn't happened. So that does beg the question a little bit, that is that a value as well? Treating your own staff well, and have we necessarily done that with Colin Lewin? I don't know. We might have. He might have known he was going, but there wasn't much done about it in terms of publicly.
That's a very good question.
I don't think he knew he was going.
Yeah,
well, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes the question then, Charles. I mean, is Ivan sort of charting a new...
I'm not saying that's linked to Arsenal, by the way, that Colin Lewin decision, but you know what I mean? It's just coincidental. Day one, and that happened.
We're talking, as we talk about values, Charles, you would think, the club being the way it is, the way it's portrayed, they would have done traditionally the right thing and sort of like, done it in a more compassionate way, I suppose. But now...
Yeah, I think it's tough though. I think I think you have to take some sort of sentiment out of some of those decisions and the way it's gone, given the change that's happening at Arsenal at the moment. I think you can't give everyone a send off, if you see what I mean.
No, not a send off, but I mean, in terms of, are we seeing a different way of
aligning the program? Yeah. That's why it's just something to acknowledge someone's.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would hope that possibly would be the case at the start of next season or something like that. But I'm not sure the decision was taken then on it, and whether this is coincided with a verbal agreement with a new manager coming in. Certainly, a new manager who's almost aware of what goes on in the medical department at Arsenal, how things are run. And he said, "Look, I want to do my own things, and so we need to start putting things in place for when I'm appointed." And maybe that's the case. If it's Arteta, he'll know what Colin Lewin's about and the work he does. And if he's coming in, he needs to get things in place pretty pronto. And so maybe that's what's happening with him, or Ivan's taken the decision himself. And, I think we've certainly seen that Ivan's been fairly ruthless.
This is what I was trying to get at now.
Over the past year, but I think you kind of have to have a fresh start as well. I think this is such a huge change, Wenger going, that you've got to have a fresh start. People have got to go. The coaching staff we've mentioned, Banfield, Payton, Borough, they had to go, absolutely had to go when Wenger goes. A lot of those have been on borrowed time for too long anyway. They shouldn't have been in the club. To be honest, it's been very much Wenger's group there, and that really drastically needed to change. I'm delighted that Lehmann hopefully is going to stay on. It looks like he will. I think that's a good call. I'm hoping that Sal Bibbo stays on because he's a very good goalkeeping coach.
I heard that he's gone. I thought
from last time I heard that he hadn't 100% gone, and there was a chance he's going to be staying on.
Right. People thought he had gone, but it was retracted a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I think there hasn't been a decision made on him. I think Arsenal are hoping that he decides to stay on.
Do you think he'll be given greater scope?
Possibly. I mean, to be fair, he's been running the ship for the last year in the goalkeeping department anyway. I mean, I know Jerry's got the title, but Sal's the one out there on the training ground and on the pitch with him all the time anyway. And that's what I'm talking about. The people have been on Easy Street at London Colney for far too long. And it really does need a rigorous change there. So, a lot of the talk's been on the manager, but I think the coaching staff's been equally as in need of a shake-up for the last few years, and I'm very happy to see that that's finally happening.
So, with what we're seeing now, what kind of coach do you expect to see? I mean, look, we're talking about young players and playing modern football, or expansive football. That rules out. Even if someone like Diego Simeone was available, you'd think that he wouldn't really be the sort of coach that would be looking for. I mean, the two just don't marry, really, do they?
No chance, Simeone. No chance. I think if you're looking at a big A grade manager, then it would be Allegri, and that's it. Arsenal they have liked Allegri. They do want him. They were pretty close last year to get Allegri until Wenger decided he was going to stay. There was certainly he was in the running and had been sounded out, and it's the same this year. But look, it's pretty clear at the moment what's happening. It's all sort of roads seem to be leading to Arteta at the moment. I think they're looking at that young head coach role rather than the manager. The fact that him and Mertesacker are very, very good mates. Mertesacker's moving to be head of the academy. You got Sven on one hand, you got Rao on the other hand, who are very experienced in the fields of running a football club and bringing and signing players. And I think they immediately. It was interesting in Ivan's first press conference after the Wenger announcement that he spelled it out that no one's going to have the power that Wenger had anymore. That those days are gone. And to me, it seems like there's no smoke without fire. And Arsenal very much are in the running for Arteta. They have sounded out Patrick Vieira as well, but I don't think that's going to be happening. And I'll be very surprised if the next manager is not Mikel Arteta now.
What qualities does Mikel Arteta possess that makes him the front runner for this role?
Honestly, we don't know. I mean, I don't know. Pep Guardiola knows, and he likes him, but none of us have really seen him, have we? And you just hope that Arsenal have done their due diligence on him. And the fact that he's so highly rated, the fact that you had Pochettino, you had Guardiola fighting over him last 2 years ago when he hung up his boots and they immediately wanted him to get into their club, says a lot. Says how he's very well respected and the people appreciate that he's going to be a very, very good coach. But in terms of what we know, none of us really know too much, do we? We're kind of, for me, we're just hoping that Ivan's done his job, that he's spoken to the people that have seen how Mikel works on the training ground, and that Mikel impressed enough in the interview. But he's from Manchester City's end, speaking to people in Manchester, he's very good at working one-to-one with players. Guardiola, it was quite interesting, really sort of praised him in talking about the development of Sane and Sterling.
And not only that, not only that, Charles. I mean, the one-on-one work he's done with the defence as well. I mean, he apparently he's done a lot of work with their defensive side of things as well, in terms of
tactically as well. Apparently he does an awful lot of the scouting reports and before the games, and this is how we're going to get at this team. This is how we can stop them attacking. This is how we can exploit their weaknesses. And he's very much the person who draws up a lot of that before the game. You kind of feel like Arsenal need that. It's what's been lacking. That tactically Arsenal haven't been great under Wenger, certainly for the last 5 or 6 years. It's very, very much been a case of, look, we're just going to play the way we want to play and hopefully that'll be enough. But it's not been enough, certainly in big away games. So you'd think that's one of the plus points of Arteta. He's very much known as someone who's very tactically astute. And so that, I'm sure that would be something that Ivan would be very impressed with, and when he's done all his homework. So I know there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of worry about his inexperience, and that's justified. But I'm kind of excited by it. I have to say, it might end up in a disaster. None of us are going to know until he gets it, and we see how it goes. But I'm kind of excited. I have to say, Arsenal have to do something different. For me, if they're going to claw back the gap on Man City, forget about the rest of the teams, because I still think Arsenal aren't that far off the likes of Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool. But if you're going to claw back on City, you've got to do something out of the ordinary. I think you've got to think outside the box. And if you're not going to get someone like Allegri, which it doesn't look like it can happen, I think this sort of appointment, it might end up being a master stroke. It really might. I'm quite excited by it.
Ax, I mean, there is excitement now. I mean, Ivan did mention it will be a bold step, you know, we'll be looking to make a bold step. We can't get more bolder than this, surely. I mean, how does it make you feel knowing that, you know, we've got somebody like, just a whole new, you know, this is a step into the unknown. You know, nobody knows how it's going to turn out. And it's it's sort of reinvigorating us almost, isn't it?
I mean, you look at, we talked about values earlier and things like that. And even at a manager level, we've always kind of given someone a chance. And you know, some of them have been maybe more experienced than others, but generally they haven't won much before they've come to Arsenal. And you know, we gave a physio a manager's job. I mean, who does that? You know, what football club does that? So it's kind of, it is a little bit Arsenal. I think for me, it's this whole structure that it's totally changed. And, you know, for years people were saying that. I think David Dein once said that it won't just take one person to replace Arsene Wenger, it will take a few. And again, Ivan said it on the announcement day that, you know, you're not replacing Arsene Wenger because you just can't. And the structure's totally changed. And I don't know, you know, I don't know what the talks have been like with someone like Allegri or even an Ancelotti or whoever, or Simeone, but to me, they, you know, certainly Allegri and Ancelotti want more control, I would say. Simeone maybe is a little bit in the middle, but this kind of, I think Raul and Sven, you know, do want to run the show and do want to run things. I think this role is very much a head coach role, which is why Arteta and Vieira have been the two touted, along with Allegri maybe, but so I think it's interesting. I think it is exciting. It definitely is exciting. And, you know, it was always one of those things where you wanted Arsene to now sort of move on, but you wanted it all to be done with a bit of class, you know, for him to have his moment. That's all happened now. So now we look to the future, and it is exciting, you know, whether Mikel Arteta is the right man or not. I really don't know. But it's certainly exciting, and the reason why it's exciting is because it's different. You know, next season will be different. We sort of knew, you know, if we were all putting our houses on it on the last couple of years, we probably would have guessed how it would have gone. You know, done well at home-ish, struggled in big games, potentially won a cup. Finished between sort of third, fourth, fifth, well, not even fifth, but maybe fifth the last few years. And generally you knew what was going to happen. Because next year, you just don't know. You just don't know. So the fact that it's different is exciting.
And I like Mikel as well. He's the sort of guy that, when you talk about values, you talk about class. He embodies those for me. You know, he was such a classy captain for Arsenal. Even when he wasn't playing, he just carried himself in the right way. Just seeing him walk around in the club blazer, he just, you know, he's so perfect. I mean, that hair, it doesn't move. And I just think he's going to look like a classy manager on the side. I know that means absolutely nothing, but I just think the aura he's going to give off, and I really hope it works out. And if it is him, which I think it probably will be, it works out, because he'll certainly have my support. And I'm sure, I know there's a lot of talk on social media, blah, 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 but I'm sure he'll have the support of everyone inside the Emirates, certainly early on. And it will just be interesting who he brings in as his assistants and his coaching staff, because I think they're going to have a really big part to play. You'd think at least one of them has to be an experienced head. I've seen people like Cazorla have been mentioned, that Arsenal are exploring a way of possibly giving him some sort of coaching role next year. I've seen Xabi Alonso mentioned, you know, very, very close mates of Arteta. But I think you kind of need, if you're going to go down those route with those kind of people, you need someone who's been around the block and done it. And I don't think it'll be bold. I'd be surprised if it's bold. I think they'll bring someone new in, but I think they'd have to get that appointment. It's going to be almost as important as getting the manager right.
You know, Charles, when it was announced that Bold and Lehmann were staying on, people sort of thought, well, maybe Bold is being retained, because you always need somebody that has that link to the club, that's been there around the club, you know, can sort of, you know, introduce the new man to different parts of the club. I suppose if you got Arteta, he knows the club anyway, in that respect. But what do you think there's anything in this Jurgen Klopp's ex number 2 coming in maybe to be Arteta's or the new guy's assistant, whoever the new guy is?
I think with that one, I think there's no smoke without fire. I think he's been sounded out about a possible role, whether it ends up being him. I don't know at this point, but I think Arsenal have certainly been sniffing around to find out his availability. I know he was interviewed for a manager's job in Germany only a couple of weeks ago, so I don't think his future is totally clear yet. But I think if he is available, then he may well be an option, and he's very experienced. He's been there by Klopp's side the whole way. So someone like that would be a good role. In terms of Bold, I think I'm not sure if he's going to be kept on yet. I think they're leaving the option open to him. He's going to be the guy who has the final decision. I think that will come fairly quickly after the manager is named. But I think with if it is Arteta, like you said, that keeping that link of people knowing the club, you can have Arteta as manager, you can have Mertesacker as academy manager. Freddie's coming back for the under-23s role, possibly. He is. You've got Jens there, so you've got very much a core base of Arsenal players or Arsenal men through and through the club at all levels there, which I think is really important. And they're people, certainly the link between Mertesacker and Arteta is going to be key, because Arsenal will be they'll be continuing to try and get people from the academy. They might even be stepping it up to try and drive even more coming from there. I think that's going to be key. And those two are very, very tight. They get on really well. They work together well. They understand each other. And I think it'll be really interesting seeing how that relationship pans out over the next couple of years.
I think, well, you talked about sort of Arteta and his blazer and proud kind of. I think Per's just the same, and maybe it's a podcast for 4 or 5 years in 4 or 5 years, kind of in 4 or 5 years time. But I think Per Mertesacker as well is just, he's got that aura about him. He's got such respect, and I'm glad he's staying, but I can really see him growing at this club. At the same way, I think with someone like Boldy, I think Boldy's got ambitions to be a manager, and I think that's kind of what he'll see, that by staying, what will he gain here? Will he learn anything? Will he progress, or is it kind of, is this time, a lot of people will see this time as a bit of a natural time to move on with Wenger going and so many changes. So I think that's what he'll see. And obviously, what was his relationship like with Arteta when he was a player? I can't really remember much about it. So I think it comes down to all those kind of aspects.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if the Stoke job comes up in the summer, what happens to Lambert if that comes up. And
he's a Stoke man, isn't he?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they come calling for him.
Santi Cazorla. Wenger was hoping that he'd make it back onto the field, as does Cazorla. I mean, there's not been any talk about his contract. Has he still got a year to go? Is it due to expire?
No, it's due to expire.
So you think he'll move into coaching? Do you think that's the way forward for him? Or?
Well, he really wants to play, and again last week he kind of told us really that he's desperate to play again. He's back in full training, but he's still doing some conditional work, and he's still doing a little bit of that. He basically essentially needs a bit of a pre-season. I think that's why he probably just wasn't back, because he's still having to do a lot more, obviously. But generally, he said he wants to play. He wants to play here. He wants to prove people probably wrong who thought maybe he's finished. But at the end of the day, he was very honest and said it's now up to the club. It's totally in the club's hands. He said he needs a decision kind of end of this week, really, because he now needs to know. So I expect his agent to be putting the pressure on Arsenal this week, just to say, all right, you need to make a decision on Santi Cazorla, because he needs to know what he's doing now. So I don't know, it's one of those where you probably wouldn't give him a deal at his current wage or anything like that, but if some sort of a lower basic with a bit of a pay to play or something like that could be introduced, or potentially on the coaching, I don't know if he wants that or not. It's not anything he mentioned, but you think it at a time where Arsene goes, a new manager comes in, there's a lot of changes in the back room. Keeping a couple of experienced heads like this would be useful. You've got your older players, you've got people like Robert Pires who seem to be around the training ground a lot. Whether that will continue, I don't know. Depends on the new manager. But a few players like Santi in the squad. Remember, Per now won't be a part of that matchday squad, so that's one you've lost. I would just speaking to him and hearing his passion in his voice, it would be great to keep him, but I think sort of financially you obviously have to be smart as well.
Going on then, Charles, and I suppose it just goes to you as well, because you're part of the AST exec. There's been talk of a £50 million budget, which I find a bit restrictive, considering there's probably enough in the reserves to allow a little bit more. We've been linked with a couple of defenders that are coming out of the German league. There's uncertainty surrounding Aaron Ramsey's contract. He was meant to have signed. I think, the talk was should have signed weeks ago, but here we are, end of the season. We don't know what he's going to do. What do you think is going to happen this summer? I mean, do you think there's going to be a high turnover of players, or do you feel that people like Jack and Aaron will stay and, they'll keep the core of this squad and work with what we've got? How do you see this summer going?
I think they're going to struggle to keep hold of Aaron Ramsey. I think he's shown absolutely no sign that he's going to sign a new deal at the moment, and Arsenal won't allow what happened with Alexis to happen again this summer with Ramsey. He's going to have to make a decision at some point this summer, and if it's that he's not going to sign now, then I'm convinced that Arsenal will sell him. They don't want to. They want to keep him, but they're not going to let him run his contract down. And given that there's not going to be that much money available at the moment this summer, they'll see that as well. This is a chance to bring in another 40 million possibly. When you think they got 40 million for Ox last year, they'll probably be looking for something similar for Aaron. And I think, for me, I think he'll go just because I don't think he's going to sign. I think he'll take a big change of stance from him and his agent if he's going to sign. But I hope I'm wrong with that, because I really want him to stay. But I think he'll go. And I think there will be a fairly high turnover. I think that they're certainly looking at defence. They definitely want Kagler Soyuncu, I think they pronounced it, the Turkish defender over at Freiburg. Talks are taking place at the moment with him. Not just Arsenal, there's a few clubs in England, but he will move to England this summer to the Premier League, and Arsenal is certainly in a running for that. Socrates over at Dortmund as well. Looking at him, I think they're sort of stepping that up because of what happened with Koscielny, and he's going to be out till December. They kind of need an experienced defender in there. When you look at it, if they bring in Soyuncu, he's only 21. You've got Chambers, Holding, Mavropanos, all very, very young. When you've lost Mertesacker, you've got Koscielny out till December at the earliest, and you've got Mustafi, who is Mustafi. He's not exactly someone you can really rely on. You need an experienced defender in there, and I think they're stepping up that. So I reckon you're looking at probably 2, possibly 3 defenders this summer, and certainly a central midfielder and a goalkeeper as well. So I wouldn't be surprised you might even be looking at about 5 signings, but if they're going to do that, they're going to have to sell at least 1, possibly 2.
Saleable assets. Who do you think is who else do you think might be going? What's your feeling, your gut?
I think Jack will sign. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a decent bid for Mustafi. I wouldn't be surprised if they let him go, because I don't think they fancy him. I know Ivan said that they didn't try and move him on last summer, but there was definitely inquiries going on to get him out of the club last summer. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes this year. If they get a decent offer for him, they're certainly not going to get 35 million they paid for him. They're not going to get that back, but if a decent offer comes in, I wouldn't be surprised if they accept that.
Why is it, Charles, that say he was at a club like Chelsea 3 years to go when his contract ends in 2021, you'd think that Chelsea would push for more than what they paid for him. Arsenal are notorious at underselling our players.
Well, but I don't think his performances justify 35 million quid. It's just not been good enough. There's no way the 35 million pound defender, he doesn't have the pace. He doesn't, he's just too rash. He's a good defender, which is the most frustrating thing about it. On his day, I mean, against Tottenham and the Emirates in the 2-0 earlier in the season, he was absolutely superb, didn't put a foot wrong. But he's in his head, Mustafi. He just makes rash decisions that cost him all the time. He dives in too early when he should stay on his feet, and he's a really frustrating defender for me, Mustafi, because you can tell he's got the ingredients to be a decent defender. Whether he's got the ingredients to be a 35 million pound defender, I'm not sure, but he certainly can be a decent Premier League defender. But to me, he just doesn't show it often enough. He makes too many wrong decisions, and I think if Arsenal really want to compete towards the top of the table, then they've got to get a bit better than Mustafi.
Akhil, over to you. Do you think the new manager might sort of upskill someone like Mustafi? I mean, a lot of people have said in the past, it's not just the fact that he makes rash decisions, it's because they're poorly coached, and a manager who's more meticulous about, developing players will get more out of him and the defensive side of us as a team.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the manager plus the coaching staff. I think, there is players there where a manager will analyze that squad and look at a few players where you think, okay, I think there's more in this person. Whether the manager's got experience with that player, whether he's played with that player, whether he just knows the player, they'll have it in their mind. But there'll be certain players that potentially have a bit of a value on them, which Aaron Ramsey, with a year left, if he's not going to sign, it's kind of done for you a little bit. You don't really have a decision to make there. If there are inquiries for Mustafi with I think his wife living abroad with his daughter or whatever, then potentially he would be open for a move. So again, it's kind of easy money in a way, I mean, where that sort of 50 million or 70 million that the ST, I think, forecasted said, we had quite an expensive January, we obviously signed Aubameyang then. In terms of wages have crept up, Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan, Lacazette, all being close to 200, and then Mesut Ozil taking potentially his and Sanchez's money kind of in one. So it's really crept up there. So I think there has to be a little bit of control. So I can see a turnaround, but I can see the new manager having to kind of get in some funds himself potentially by just trimming that squad down or getting rid of a couple that maybe have a bit of a value that aren't going to add anything, and then making a decision from the young players who can actually play a part. Can Ainsley Maitland-Niles be what you want him to be, and then that's one of the squad positions filled and things, and other players like that, Joe Willock and Eddie Nketiah and stuff like that. So I think there are people.
You got people like Lucas Perez as well. They've got to
they're going to come back.
Books. And you've got to get him off the books properly, and even Danny Welbeck's in a similar position around.
Is it Joel Campbell? Is he?
Joel Campbell. I think he's out of contract. I think he might be out of contract now.
But you speak of Welbeck. I mean, he's got one more year to go. He's on the plane to the World Cup. Decent World Cup. Do you think they'll either give him a new deal or try and sell him on the back of a World Cup tournament?
I think if Wenger's here. Yeah, I think if Wenger was here, he'd try and give him a new deal. He really liked Welbeck. So I think if Wenger was still around, then he'd certainly try and keep him. But I think it just depends on what the new manager wants, for me. And, again, I think if you get a decent offer for Welbeck, given he's only got a year, and if he's not going to sign, then you got to take it, really.
Yeah. New manager, but also what Raul and Sven think, I think, because they'll be looking at it from a value point of view. Yeah. With Arsene, I think he was very close with his players, and sometimes potentially sentiment might have played a part.
Take a distance.
Or he saw, he saw things that others didn't. But here there'll be a distance taken. Yeah. Ivan's been ruthless, and I fully expect the other two to be quite ruthless too.
Well, I think we've seen that already. Just the fact that as soon as I know Raul didn't officially start till February, but he was working before that. And Sven came in, and immediately you saw people. You saw Walcott go. You saw Giroud go. Very much staunch Wenger players that immediately were as soon as those two got involved, that they were out in the first window. I thought that was very telling.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, those decisions cost us in the Europa League, because we bought a striker very much for next season, who couldn't play in the Europa League, and suddenly we actually left ourselves short up front in the Europa League with no Walcott, no Giroud. So that definitely tells you that Arsene Wenger wasn't involved in January. I'm convinced of that. And the Mkhitaryan, he kind of wanted Mkhitaryan, or he certainly liked Mkhitaryan beforehand. So that potentially he was happy with, but I don't think he was involved much. So if that's how January went, I think the summer will be similar. Others making the decisions.
Okay. Cool. Let's see how it turns out. I mean, before we finish, I suppose we should wrap up really by, referring back to Wenger and I suppose talking about legacies, and how he will be viewed in time. Charles, after the dust settles, even some of the staunchest WOB acolytes have sort of like, I suppose calmed down and simmered down a bit and have found it in their hearts to praise him and acknowledge what he's done. Do you think in the goodness of time people will actually see just how important he was to the English game?
Absolutely. They have to. I mean, he's an absolute great of English football. Absolute great of English football. And he has to be seen like that. What he did at Arsenal was magnificent for those 20. Obviously, the first decade was just sensational. Everything about it was sensational. But even the second decade, I know it's hard to see it, but what he did, certainly initially after the move to the Emirates, to keep Arsenal competitive during that time was an incredible achievement. Having to sell your best players every single season, having to generate at least 25 million quid just to pay interest off. And to keep Arsenal in that top four when you look at some of the teams he had was a fantastic achievement. I think the last few years have been poor, even though we've won the FA Cup, which has been great, and they've been really good days out. I think the last few years have been a disappointment. I think ultimately that's cost him his job, certainly the last two. But he is an absolute great. The way he's carried himself, everything about him, the football he's brought to England, the players he's brought to England, the trophies he's won, the way he's won it, the Invincibles, everything about him has just been fantastic, and he will be remembered for forevermore when you're talking about English football. And he will have. There's going to be a permanent memento at the Emirates, whether it's a statue, whether it's a stand named after him. He'll be remembered at Arsenal forever. And, alongside Herbert Chapman, and that will be for the wider English football as well. He has to. There's no doubt about it. He's one of the greats of our game.
Do he spoke about, I think somebody asked him if he would do it all over again. And I think he intimated that there was some regrets, and he definitely said that he wouldn't do that second half of his tenure again, if given the chance. I mean, he was well remunerated. We all know he collected on a whole about 100 million in wages and whatnot. But, the fact that he decided to stay when at the peak of his powers, he could have chosen any club in the world. That has to be taken into account, surely.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the banks almost made it part of the deal. If Arsenal were going to stay, if they were going to give the money to build the Emirates, they wanted Arsene Wenger a guarantee that Arsene Wenger was going to stay in charge for at least 5 years. Just the fact that he did that, when he could have gone to Real Madrid, he could have gone to Barcelona, or he could have gone to Man United at some point, and he stayed all the time to stay at Arsenal, and because it's a club that he loves, and he deserves all of our respect for that. Especially of Arsenal fans, and I've hated some of the not criticism, because he deserved criticism. I've given him plenty of criticism, and I absolutely feel he should have gone after the whole FA Cup win, certainly after the Chelsea FA Cup win. But the personal criticism coming his way has been so bang out of order, and so that's why I was really happy that it ended the way it did, and it seemed like everyone had come together and given him the send off he deserved. Because he deserves that. He's been an absolute rock for Arsenal for 20 years. And, we're going to see now he's gone, just exactly what happens. Hopefully it goes in an upward trajectory and it's all fine. But, whatever happens now, he's been an absolute rock, and he deserves all the plaudits that's come his way these last few months.
So over to you, X. I mean, how do you see his legacy being, looked over in time?
Yeah, no, there's not much to add there really from what Charles said. I think, the trophies, the players, the good football he's given us, even in the recent years, the cup finals, the actual days of a cup final, it's there's nothing really better than waking up in the morning of a cup final or a big game and having that buzz about you, you know, meeting your mates early or your family early, potentially doing a lunch, all that, and just that excitement. And then the celebrations afterwards. We've had a few parades recently. You know, we've had some really, really good days with Arsene Wenger in charge. But for me, that transition from Highbury to the Emirates, I think was just, you know, it was different class. To keep us competitive, to have to sell your players in order to break even and things like that. I just think it was an absolute magnificent achievement. I think it's, in that time, Arsene Wenger learned how to take average players and get the best out of them, you know. But then that bit when I think he sort of lost his way a little bit when we got the money back, you know, after sort of, I think 2011-12 was the moment really, because in 2011, you know, he signed Olivier Giroud and Santi Cazorla. He also signed Lucas Podolski, but they were that sort of middle range. They were B prices, 10, 12 million, but he got the best out of them. And then when he went to the Mesut Ozils and the more, you know, we've spent a lot on even Granit Xhaka and Mustafi, that's when potentially the signings weren't quite the best, and that's where maybe lost his way. But that 6 years after Highbury to the Emirates, I thought were absolute class. But I think just generally the way he's represented the club, I think has been great. I mean, Rafa Benitez said, you know, that obviously in 22 years you are going to have a few examples where you've lost it a little bit, and that's normal, and I think he's right. So generally, you know, Arsene Wenger talked about recently that he's worked 6.5, 7 days a week for this football club, and no matter if you think he's done a good job, a bad job, or average job, someone that is dedicated 22 years of their life to this football club, 7 days a week. You know, we all know that, yeah, he's been paid well, but where is that money gone? Probably just in a saving trust somewhere, because you don't see him pictured on massive holidays. He has a Lexus as a car, which every couple of years he upgrades and just buys a slightly newer Lexus, and things like that. So you just think, fair play to him. You know, he has actually given 100% to this football club. He's been committed to this football club. And as you said, you know, he had plenty of offers in the first 8 to 10 years, potentially less in the next few, but, you know, he's always been there. He's always fronted it out. I think about that time to change protest. He stood on that touchline. And even though I was starting to come to that time where I thought actually it is time for a change, I respected the man because he was standing there and he took it. He was there for his players, and he kind of was telling the fans, you know, yeah, put it all on me kind of thing. And I think he's taken bullets for the club, for in terms of the board. He's taken bullets for players as recently as a couple of Thursdays ago in Madrid. So, you know, he definitely has my respect.
Indeed, quite. I think that's a good way to round it off. I think we should leave it there. I want to thank our guest today, Charles Watts. Thank you for coming on, Charles.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
No worries.
Charles.
No worries. And all that's left for me to say is this has been my final podcast on the Green and Ramble after 5 years of enjoyable ride. Just like Wenger, I'm going to call it quits and leave it in the capable hands of Akil. Akil is now the man to take it forward, just like Mikel Arteta. I'm sure he'll come out with some new ideas and new ways of putting us on an upward trajectory. So on that happy note, I'm going to say
I've arranged a plane that says Mercy Giles. By the way. It's going over your house right now.
Oh yeah,
spot it.
So all that's left for me to say is thank you, well done, and bye bye. All right, that's
cool.
it.
Cheers, Charles.
No worries. Thanks for having me, boys. Enjoyed it.
No problem, mate.
Up your
Cheers,
Arsenal.
Mate. Up the Arsenal.
Indeed. Up the Arsenal. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
This podcast is sponsored by the Tollington Arms on Hornsey Road, a bubbly pub with a Thai kitchen home to thousands of Arsenal fans every season. Open daily from noon.